Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar, A Curriculum for Foundational Research Data Science Skills for Early Career Researchers. We have quite a large number of registrations, and let's give people a minute or two before we start the actual webinar. Thank you. Okay, hello everybody. Hello everyone who's just joined, and welcome to the webinar, A Curriculum for Foundational Research Data Science Skills for Early Career Researchers. We have speakers Hugh Shanahan from Royal Holloway in the UK, Paula Martinez from the National Imaging Facility at the University of Queensland, Australia, and Jacqueline Stevens from the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute, SAMRI, also in Australia. I just put my webcam on briefly. My name is Stefanie Ketas. I'm the Research Data Alliance Director of Operations, and I work for the Australian Research Data Commons also in Australia. Just some housekeeping rules. This webinar is being recorded. You have joined the webinar in listen-only mode, which means you're muted. And please feel free to type questions into the questions panel during the talks or afterwards, and we'll try to address your questions as much as we can. Thank you very much. Now, just a brief introduction. In terms of the webinar, I've already mentioned our speakers. And just to let you know, what you, Jacqueline, and Paula are going to be talking about is one of the many outputs that's been produced by Research Data Alliance Working Interest Group. In this case, it's a joint group between Research Data Alliance and CoData. It's a working group. And you can learn more about RDA outputs, for example, at the next RDA plenary. And you can also meet our wonderful community there. Just to let you know, the next RDA plenary will be held next month in Melbourne, Australia, with the theme of data for real-world impact. And if you're interested in registering, early bird registration closes on the 14th of February, just before midnight UTC. And we hope to see many of you there. Now, let's move on to Hugh Shanahan. Let's make him presenter.
All right.
Hugh is Professor of Open Science at Royal Holloway, which is part of the University of London. He's got a background in bioinformatics and physics, and he's been involved in the RDA summer school since, I think, 2015.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thank you very much, and go for it, Hugh.
Okay, thank you. So let me just do a very quick check. Stephanie, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Sorry, everybody. We just had some problems just with my internet connectivity just prior to this talk. Okay, so hello, everybody, wherever you are. So what I'm going to do is spend about 30 minutes talking about the curriculum. Just to note, if it's all right, we'll hold the questions back until the end of the session. Stephanie, please feel free to stop me at any point if A, you think I'm going on for too long, or B, if there's some problems with audio or whatever. All right. So, and I should apologize also, it's about 5 o'clock in the morning for me here. So my apologies if my voice is sounding a little bit rough. Okay. So what are we talking about here? So this is, I'm going to talk mostly about this thing called the CoData RDA Schools, which is sort of the foundation for the curriculum that is now recognized as an output from the RDA. I'll spend some time mostly trying to motivate where we are and why it is that we have a need for this. In particular, I think one thing that some people might sort of raise their eyebrows about this is to say, well, you know, there are loads of boot camps, and there are many different, you know, data science MSc programs that are out there, and so on. And the thing I want to point out here is that what we do is quite different from the sort of the standard, you know, days 1 to 3, here's Python, days 4 to 5, here's TensorFlow, and so on. It's quite different from that. And in many respects, our goals are quite different from that as well. So let me talk about initially about why it is that we had this idea to set this up. So, sorry, excuse me. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about are the actual gaps that we've identified. So one of the things, thanks to the work of organizations such as the Carpentries and so on, is that one of the kind of outstanding gaps that people have in terms of making use of all the data that's being generated and all of the infrastructures is actually the skills that early career researchers need to actually make sense of all of this data. So that kind of represents an opportunity, but also clearly a challenge. And most people kind of look upon that as, oh yeah, we have all these PhD students and all these postdocs who don't know what to do with the data. But on the other hand, we could say, well, actually, this is great. We have an opportunity to do things the right way and get everybody skilled up in the same fashion. One of the things to note here is that the focus of the CoData RDA Schools is very much on early career researchers from low and middle income countries. But that also includes, but what we teach is as good as for high income countries. It's the same thing for requirements for high income countries. We need to get to a point also where early career researchers are ready for the next phase of things. So if we're in a place, and again, I'll engage in a little what I call buzzword bingo, and say, okay, if we're in a situation and a landscape where, for example, more data conforms to the FAIR principles, if we see openness as a default mode and so on, we need to get people ready for that. And perhaps the thing we need to deal with most of all is the fact that people tend to sort of think of data science and so on as a discipline where everybody is well tooled and well kitted up. But actually, for the most part, what we have is a situation where early career researchers are very isolated. They are the one person in their group who's, quote, good with computers, unquote. And that's perhaps the worst thing of all, that early career researchers who are sort of seem to be pretty adept at dealing with data, but often feel like they're the only people in the world who are actually worrying about these issues, and they're saying to themselves, oh my God, I've got this huge set of spreadsheets that I'm supposed to be dealing with, and I'm sure everybody else has got a much better way of doing things. So we've got to deal with that situation, making them realize that actually they're not the only people on the face of the planet to be worrying about this. So what we wanted to do here, and let's kind of move on to what are the overall goals of the schools, is that actually to address that, we've got, in some respect, two different strands to work with. There's the thing kind of on the top left-hand corner here, which are the data science skills. And that's the thing that everybody kind of sort of says, oh yeah, absolutely. We need to get people up to speed on using the Unix command line, and they should know about Git, and they should know about data visualization and things like that. And that's inevitably the point when you get sort of lots of breathless commentary about people saying, yeah, we should just get everything put online, and we'll get everybody tooled up that way, and we're all done. But the other thing that's pretty clear is that what we also need to do is the stuff that's in the box on the top right-hand side. In other words, responsible research practices. So this is quite different, which is thinking about things like, how do you manage your data, research data management? How do you actually write papers in the 21st century? And perhaps most importantly, how do you engage with open science? How do you, is that a thing you want to take up? So you have two quite different strands that actually really need to be covered here. The other point is that to avoid that situation where we've got ECRs who are feeling really isolated, we need to build up communities of those ECRs. They need to realize that they're not the only people on the face of the planet worrying about various sorts of issues, and that they should feel that they can actually reach out to those people, which again is to sort of avoid that issue of, oh, okay, we're just giving people online materials really isn't enough, because they still kind of see all this stuff and they see all this activity, but they don't feel that there's somebody that they can actually go and talk to. So those two top things in the yellow box, what we do is we've kind of put those guys together, and we would call that the materials for this, and we've given, for want of a better title, research data science, the data science skills necessary to do research. And we combine those two things in the green box with the pink box, we get the CoData RDA schools. So overall, we have a set of objectives for these schools, which is, in the short to medium term, we want to be in a place where we're running an ever-expanding series of these CoData RDA schools in research data science, and they're run regionally across the world to early career researchers. Now, the long-term goal is that we're in a place where actually we're sort of made redundant, that we get to a point where the curriculum that, for example, that we put out onto that the RDA has very kindly identified as an output, or something close to that, is something that higher education institutes are teaching on a global basis to ECRs. So in other words, in every university around the world, we get to a point where anybody who's working with data, and that can be anything from the digital humanities to high energy physics, is spending 2 weeks or so of their lives learning this foundational material. And they can just get, and that they say, okay, we understand this, and then they can move on. And that higher education institutes simply get that it's a thing that has to be taught. So if we have the curriculum that we've put together, we have and then we have the CoData RDA schools, which represents a joint effort between CoData and the RDA. Now, the RDA, Stephanie has already done a really nice little introduction there, and there are a number of really good webinars to talk about the RDA. Very briefly, I should just introduce the CoData. It's a committee on data and of the International Science Council, and it has an overall mission statement to exists to promote global collaboration, to advance open science, and to improve the availability and usability of data for all areas of research. So they are a very sort of complementary organization to the RDA, which is largely a bottom-up organization, while CoData is very much sort of a top-down type of organization. Okay, so what are the CoData RDA schools? It's a 2-week event the focus very much on the schools has at least initially been on early career researchers from low and middle income countries. It composes the materials that are taught over those 2 weeks are the technical and responsible research skills. And we put that together, as you said, into something that we'll call research data science. The important point to note here is that it's not another boot camp. In other words, it's not just a focus entirely on technical skills. It covers topics such as research data management, open science, author carpentry. So it really is a blend of things. It's a very, I've sort of shown a kind of collage of pictures there, and it's, you know, to sort of emphasize the very human quality about these schools. It is very much about the chance for us, for people to get together, and most of all to sort of realize, hey, hang on, I'm not the only person who's worrying about these sorts of kinds of issues. So let me now talk about what's covered in the curriculum. Now, as you said, we've got 2 weeks, and over those 2 weeks, we keep people work very hard. So we're working most days from 9 until 6. So at the center of all of this is open and responsible research. So the idea there is that this happens in the first week. We have initially, it's basically a set of fairly short seminars, but for the most part, it's based on discussions, and it's about getting people to stop and think about, what do you mean by open and responsible research? I think one of the things that, you know, there are lots of really good resources out there on open science and how to do open science and so on. But the one thing that we don't want to do is to be in a situation where we're sort of wagging our finger at people and saying, you must do this, you must be open, you know, or else you're a bad person. And or else you have a situation where we have an event like this and a student is really engaged and saying, yeah, I want to do this, and now I'm going to change the world, or at least I'm going to change everything at my university. And then they return back to their home institution and they encounter a PI and kind of further up in the system, which is saying, well, you know, how is this going to do to make you write better papers and get more grants in and so on? And then they kind of hit sand. So this is to get people thinking about this and to sort of actually do an honest assessment with themselves to say, okay, is there anything that I can do here? Do I want to engage with this? Most of all, to stop and think about things. After that, I mean, the open and responsible research kind of happens at the start and end of the first week. The other thing actually I should also say is that at the end of all of the other courses that we're showing here, we have a set of exercises which are sort of based around ethics, so that it continually reminds folk that actually this is an issue that people should be thinking about. So in other words, it's not responsible research is not something that sits in splendid isolation. It's actually something which fits into all the other different topics that we cover. So for pretty much the first 2.5 days, we make use of the software carpentry materials. And this is taught usually by software carpentry instructors. And in particular, what that means is we introduce people to the Unix command line, to the tool Git, and then to either or Python. So for the most part, what we've done for most of the schools is we've used OR, and something that's very important is that language, whatever language we use, it's used by, you know, for the entirety of the school, so that we're not giving kind of a cognitive load there. As I said, for the most part, we used OR. The school we ran in December, we used Python, and that seemed to work out quite well. So if you imagine they've now spent about 3 days, students have spent about 3 days with a very, very intensive sort of synchronized typing type of exercise, very, very technical. At that stage, then we do a change of pace and we spend a day and a half talking about research data management. So that's a little bit more seminar based, getting people to think about, giving people sort of exercises and so on. And that's covering various topics, like a very quick introduction to data management plans, FAIR principles, and metadata standards, and so on. The following week, we start off, the week that started off is that the following week is definitely more technical, and we start going the mountain climb gets a bit hard, gets a bit more steep. So we start off talking about visualization, how to visualize your data, what's good, what's bad visualization. So obviously, if we're using R, we're doing stuff in using ggplot2 and so on. In the Python course that we did, we made use of Seaborn. That's a little bit tricky because that's probably still not an entirely mature technology as of yet, but we want to cover, we introduce people to the practical issues associated with visualization. We also introduce people to information security as a topic. Now, what we're not trying to do is to explain, the cryptographic algorithms, or the entire pantheon of information security that would be thought to computer scientists. What that is, the information security is about, is to remind people that though you might be encouraged to say, yes, we're getting to a place where things are being open, where data is being shared, where methods are being shared, but that certainly doesn't mean that you shouldn't let your guard down, and you should still be talking with your IT team to make sure that everything that you do is reasonably locked down, and that people don't have, people don't get root access to your servers and so on. This is a small little box which we call analysis, which is actually what we're actually doing there is we spend 2 days, even 2.5 days, introducing people to machine learning techniques. So typically what that means is giving people an introduction to things like artificial neural networks, to kind of an overall background in machine learning in terms of, well, what's classification, regression, and those sorts of things. It's a small box, but that's the one that's really, really hard, and that's the one where people really are, people sweat a lot. The thing to note there is that we pull people together into teams, and we try and get a spectrum of abilities within that team. So everybody comes away learning something from that. We have more or less round off the school on discussing computational infrastructures. And what that's a reminder to say to people, well, for the most part, what you have, most people just sit down and are just working on their laptop or the desktop. But as it is, what happens is that we have obviously there's all the computing that lies beyond that. So, we're trying to introduce people to cloud facilities, grid resources, containers, and all of those sorts of issues. What we also do which is something which tends to be a little bit sort of scattered through the school, particularly in the first week, is we have also have a course on something called author carpentry, which is effectively techniques that are necessary for authorship for the 21st century. So in particular, it's about introducing people to the ideas of things like notebooks and doing documentation, and how do you download materials, and ORCID IDs, and these sorts of issues. So again, it's part of that responsible research practices that we're covering there. So we have a set of principles associated with what we're covering here. In particular, the first thing first is that we're not really about trying to get people to create materials completely from scratch. There's loads of materials that are out there. We're big on making sure that we reuse what's available. So in particular, what that means is for example, working in partnership with the carpentries who already provide absolutely outstanding materials for us to use, and also as a general principle to make use of the absolutely outstanding pedagogy that the carpentries have pioneered. The materials, we always make sure that things are available under an open source license. So if an instructor comes along, we always say, look, can we make sure that everything is available there? We try and not only blend our materials, but also we blend the teaching styles. So we have the kind of what you might call synchronized typing sessions, which is, you know, here we go, working in the lab, here materials, type this, then carry on, then type this, and so on. But also with seminars, and then also with discussion sessions, and then with kind of teamwork type of things. The next few slides, in one of the next few slides, I'll kind of show a map of where we've run our schools. Our sort of home base is one in Trieste in Italy. That's very much our sort of test bed, our test bed. So when we have new ideas and where we want to go and so on, that's the place that we try things out. It's also a really great organization. They were kind of the place where we first ran our first school. The ICTP, the International Center for Theoretical Physics there, they provide a fantastic infrastructure there. And actually, they're also a good place to bring researchers in from around the world, particularly those from low and middle income countries, because their infrastructure is set up for that. They have a great back office for dealing with visas and so on. We have other regional schools, which then kind of what lessons we learned from the Trieste school, we then apply in our regional schools. The regional schools, a key point to note is that we use as many regional instructors as possible. And that's quite an important thing. So number one is because financially it's very effective. We're not made of money and we're continually struggling for funding, to be brutally honest. But what it also means, there's also very good pedagogical reasons for that, which is that students in a region get to realize that, you know, we're not of a situation where people are parachuted in and said, oh yeah, here's some stuff and it's all great, and now you've learned, and now I'm teaching it to you, and now you've learned it all, and now I'm going to say goodbye and move on. You need to have a situation where we're using, if you have regional instructors, then there's a realization, oh yeah, actually these are all pretty straightforward. This is all straightforward stuff. It's not like super advanced stuff. You can make use of it. So people feel, I think, that they can much more engage with the material that's out there. And finally, we recruit from our student body. We've taught over 400 students at this stage, and what we've done is that we've, as you know, students who get enthused by what we do, we make sure that we actually we bring them back as helpers, and others go on to become instructors, and ultimately they get involved in the organization. So for example, we have a large number of co-chairs. We're a fairly flat organization, and about half of those are now people who first came along to a school and kind of was a student there and sort of grew up from that. So the idea is that as the community evolves, the community takes more and more charge of how things are run. So here's a quick map of the various locations that we have run this and where we will run. So as you said, Trieste is kind of our main location, and we've kind of consistently run that every year since 2016. We've run now 3 events in Africa, in Kigali, in Addis Ababa, and Pretoria. We should I haven't put this down on the map, but we should in the future, in Q3 this year, we're hoping to run an event in Abuja in Nigeria. We've run one event in Australia, and I'm delighted that the fact that we've got Paula and Jacqueline who are at the school there. It actually only ran for 1 week, but it was a good one. I have happy memories of that. And then we've run schools also in Central and South America. So things have been trundling along really, really nicely there. So here we are, February 2020. We've now delivered 9 2-week schools on 4 continents. And then there's actually also the Brisbane school, which ran for 1 week. We're this year, the school in Trieste, that'll be our 5th anniversary. And believe me, everybody's kind of shaking their heads thinking, how did we get to this point? We've taught about 400 students from about 40 different countries. I've been doing these kind of back of the envelope calculations, but as far as I can see, you know, if I kind of bear with me while I talk about things from a British perspective, as far as, you know, in terms of doing kind of a back of the envelope calculation, I calculate that to be about £250,000 UK pounds of teaching. So I guess that's about maybe $300,000 US worth of teaching, something like that. And the thing that's really, really remarkable is that all of that is done very much as a volunteer network. I mean, we now have somebody who's working, you know, in a kind of an administrative support role, but that's still kind of quite small. Everything here happens as a volunteer network. Now, I've been speaking for 27.5 minutes, so I'm going to skip over the next few slides, but what I will make sure is that these slides will be available, and I'll ask maybe Stephanie to make sure that the materials are available here, so you can read about our data steward strand elsewhere. So there's a number of slides there, which I'm just going to skip over now, so bear with me as I kind of skip through these different guys here. And let me just kind of wrap up and say, the thing that's really, really important to note here is that, yeah, the curriculum that we're teaching is super important, and we're delighted if people can take that and run with it. But perhaps the most important thing to note is that we're really trying to change a culture here in terms of very, very fundamentally getting people to work together and building the communities necessary to follow that approach. That's really hard. It's actually pretty easy to teach people the Unix command line and R and Git and so on. But getting people to work together and so on, that's super hard, but very effective in the long run. Here's a list of some of our most recent sponsors, without whom none of this would have happened, and we're enormously grateful to them. I think in particular, just wanted to say that I'm incredibly grateful to the RDA and the enormous levels of support that they've given to us. This organization has been utterly amazing for us, and I cannot say thank you so much for them. We have an ever-expanding set of chairs, most of whom now are actually taken from the student body, and they're great people to know. The last thing I just want to also say is the actual list of the curriculum is here's at the top page is the DOI, and we also have a set of GitHub addresses for the schools themselves, you know, and with contact details and stuff like that for you to have a look at. Okay, so yeah, okay, that takes me to 30 minutes, so I'll wrap up at this point.
Thank you very much, Hugh. That was very interesting. If anyone in the audience would like to ask questions, please feel free to type them into the questions box. And we will attempt to have them answered. I don't see any questions at the moment. Can I ask you one question?
Yeah, far ahead.
Okay, so I would be interested to know what kind of feedback you've gotten from people who have taught and attended the schools, and whether you've had an evaluation program of any kind.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. That's a good question, Stephanie. So again, one of the ideas that we make a lot of use from the carpentries is yeah, we do a lot of that sort of evaluation as we're going forward. So in particular, you know, we ask people to fill out questionnaires beforehand to try and get an idea of where people are. Immediately after a particular module is finished, we use this kind of red and green stickies. So people write one thing which they say they maybe didn't like, and something that they did like. We also have a series of kind of longer term surveys and some immediate, like post school questionnaires as well. I think one of the things that sort of come out of that is that um, and yeah, over the last 5 years, the modules have evolved. So, for example, when we initially thought things, we had a session on databases, on SQL. But actually, talking to people, it was clear that people didn't think that was particularly useful. You know, so we actually decided to drop that, and we put in the information security material instead, and things like that have sort of the things that were there. I think the thing that we would like to do more of is to do the kind of more longer term surveys, say, you know, to ask people like a year, 2 years after they've done the school, what's been the impact there. We've done one of those surveys, but it's kind of like a fairly sort of low level of response, and we need to make kind of more use of that to kind of go, okay, what was the things that were really, really useful to you going forward?
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question from the audience. I'll just read this out. You mentioned that in the long term, this curriculum should be taught to all ECRs at higher education institutions.
Yeah.
Where or who do you see as being responsible for this? Who will teach this? Do you see faculty, IT staff, librarians?
Oh, okay. I could be cheeky and say yes. I think no. I mean, actually, I think it's so. So number one, the important thing is that it's the curriculum that gets delivered, not the how. So in other words, here we've done things on a 2-week school because that's probably the most efficient way of getting things done. Um, um, but on the other hand, if a HEI decides to say run these modules sort of over a 1-year period, you know, that's going to work just as well. The way I would see it is you'd actually have a combination of all of those people being involved. So you have, say, the IT people doing the course, you know, doing doing the course on the Unix command line, introducing people to or Python and so on. You might have people with more of a librarian background covering the research data management aspects, the open science parts, the author carpentry parts. Then you might have faculty to teach the machine learning course and perhaps visualization and the infrastructures course. So and the thing I probably haven't sort of stressed here is that these materials are very much at what we call a foundational level. This is not meant to be an advanced workshop. It's the kind of it's the kind of, like I said, the foundational stuff. So actually, if you look at any university campus, pretty much all of those things, you know, they're there are people on that campus who, on pretty much every university campus, who know these things. And it's important to note that these are things that can be, and we can leverage that. And also, you know, that we want to give people the freedom to deliver that. Now, I would like, you know, one of the sort of glimmers in my eye is the idea of moving on in terms of giving people sort of feedback and consultation, and ultimately, accreditation on, are you delivering this material? But ultimately, the idea is that people get on with this and they deliver this material, and or something fairly close to it, rather than necessarily trying to police everything, because you can't. Tens of thousands of HEIs around the world. How are you going to be able to do that? We just, for the most part, we let people get on with it and trust them to do the right thing.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any further questions at this point. If you have any questions, please continue to type them into chat and we'll pick them up at the end. But let's now hear from one of the instructors in one of the schools. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so let's hear now from Paula Martinez. Dr. Paula Andrea Martinez. She's the National Training Coordinator for the Characterization Community in Australia. She's the former Elixir Belgium Data Science Trainer and Deputy Coordinator. She's a Carpentries Trainer, Mentor and Instructor, Foster Open Science Trainer and Elixir Trainer, and her background is in compute-intensive research. Paula, if you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I think that works well.
Good. Thanks for the introduction. I am here to share my experience in the CoData Summer School in Trieste in 2018. How it all started for me is it's at Elixir. So I was working for Elixir in 2018, and Elixir is this European multi-institutional organization that coordinates life science infrastructure, resources, and data for academics and for industry users. In April of 2018, there was a competency framework workshop where I met Hugh and I heard for the first time about the CoData RDA Summer Schools. My engagement started because I resonated with the audience and the open communities that the CoData RDA involves. So first of all, I heard that it's people coming from all over the world. They meet together and they learn this responsible research skills. And since I've been part of the Carpentries for a few years, I really felt inclined to be involved. So at that time, Elixir joined the CoData RDA to organize the International Summer School in Trieste in 2018 as part of the Learning Paths working task. Together with some of the Elixir nodes listing Elixir Belgium, Elixir Slovenia, and Elixir Greece, we supported the summer school in different ways. So we provided trainers as part of the Carpentries curriculum in the foundational school. And the other part that we help with is the advanced summer school. So after the 2 weeks foundational school, there are some summer schools proposed, and it includes bioinformatics, Internet of Things, and climate modeling. So as Elixir, leading infrastructure for life sciences, we provided, we developed and delivered a program for the advanced summer school in bioinformatics, and the materials are reusable and open. I added the DOI there, and it's pretty much a combined effort from Elixir Greece, H3A, Bionet, and Goblet. For me personally, it was a very vibrant experience in class. We had people from so many different countries with so many different backgrounds. They were all so keen to learn. As Hugh mentioned, they were in a room for long hours, but they skyrocketed in a few days. So some people came with very little background about what computing is and what they can do with it. And after 2 or 3 days, when I finished my instruction, they were able to develop their own projects and being open from the beginning. It was not only an amazing experience in the classroom, but it was also a time to meet people that might have a completely different background as ours. We came from so many different countries, so we spent some time together outdoors, and it was a very grateful experience that I have that I won't forget, and we're still in touch with some of the attendees. This is my last slide, and I want to quote Mina Samani, who said that we came as strangers, but then we live as friends. And that was the idea of the CoData RDA for me that still resonates. So we started a beginning together, we keep progressing, being able to keep in touch with some of the people and work together is success for me as well. That's the experience that I wanted to share, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Paula. I don't see any questions at the moment. Maybe a question from me, if that's okay. So it sounds like there's been a lot of community building, and you said you're still in touch with some of those people. Is there anything else that you thought was a really good thing about the summer schools? I mean, that's a wonderful thing, and community building is really, really important. Is there anything else that you think was a really good outcome from the school?
Yeah, I think it's an emerging port of opportunities. Not only I've met new people, but I also reunited with people that I met through other communities. So I met people from OpenCon, which is a conference about open science. I met people from Foster, which is an organization in Europe that develops open science materials. I met with people from the carpentries as instructors or members of the community. I heard about their experiences in other locations of the world, and it was really inspired to see that for example, I heard for the first time that in Africa, every time they finish a workshop in art, they will build a new community for our users, and especially our ladies users. And that was something that was a highlight for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, here's another question. So this is Liz from Sydney. Hello, Paula. ResBus is my nearest reference point. What does CoData Summer School and your experience of ResBus have in common?
Thanks for the question. I think I'm a good person to answer that because I've been involved with ResBus as well. So for people who don't know, ResBus is it might be a week-long activity that targets research skills. What we have in common is that we are targeting people with foundational skills. So what is the very basic that you need to be able to handle data and process it in the right way. You are exposed in both of the environments, the CoData RDA and at ResBus, to new technologies and to new people that you can contact after. So like Hugh mentioned, we try to keep the link together and not just disappear after we given a workshop. So those are the 3 things that I see in common.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, if anyone in the audience has any further questions, please feel free to type them into the questions and we can get back to them at the end. All right, thank you very much, Paula. And let's now switch to our final presenter. And that's Jacqueline Stevens. She's an early career. Dr. Jacqueline Stevens is an early career researcher and epidemiologist who conducts research focused on reducing health inequity and improving access to healthcare services, particularly for infectious diseases and ear health. Jacqueline, if you're ready.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, just going, there we go. Yeah, hi everyone. So yeah, my name's Jackie. I attended the Brisbane winter school, sorry, in June of 2018. I'm just going to go through a little bit about my experience and how I came to be at the summer school. The summer school, as Hugh has already said, was a shorter duration when it was held in Australia. It went for a week. And the event was actually, aside from being sponsored by CoData, RDA, and the Carpentries, was also supported by the Australian Academy of Science. And through the Early Career Researcher network that the Australian Academy of Science support, there was an invitation to participate. So it was really popular, and there was a lot of people that applied. So it was about 120 or 30 people applied, and of that, there were 12 people from Australia selected to participate, with 3 participants from the region as well. So in total, there was 15 participants. So it was one of the smaller schools run, because as you can see from Paula's photos, there was the courses run in Europe often have a lot more people than just 15. One of the benefits of having a smaller group, though, was that it really provided a lot of opportunity to meet people and build our network and discuss individual issues. So of the 15 people that participated, it was a really mixed group. 4 of us were working in public health. 1 person was a mathematician. There were 2 ecologists, 3 engineers, 2 people in economics, an urban planner, someone in social science, and someone in agriculture. And it was held up at the University of Queensland campus, St Lucia campus, which is a wonderful location. It's right on the riverfront. For those of you who don't know, Brisbane is on the northeast coast of Australia, and it's a fairly tropical part of the world. And the location is really quite picturesque. So that was it was quite a good location. I've actually done other work there before, and it's really well set up for this kind of collaborative teaching school, where the IT is all there, the infrastructure is all there, and it really provided a really good learning space. You can actually just see in this picture here the building that we were in, just hiding behind these trees, and this is actually a great big pond that is in the middle of the campus. And one of the things that I wanted to just show is the learning environment that we were in, which is the picture in the top left of this slide, where you can see that we've all got our computers on desks. We sitting around small tables, working in that small group environment, where we were able to talk about our own individual problems that we were experiencing in our data analysis or data management, but then also working in doing the sort of line by line, going through and learning some basic skills and putting in coding and into the Unix or R environments. So in the abbreviated course that I did, we covered, as Hugh has already said, topics around Unix and GitHub, how to work with people using GitHub in a collaborative way and sharing data, which is becoming more and more important in a research environment. we explored a lot of the security and data management around using those kinds of platforms, which is particularly important for those of us working in health who are often using sensitive data. And then moving on to sort of more the computational infrastructure requirements that we need to be able to do this work. So I had actually come to this course having a fairly advanced foundation in using R, but that was actually given to me through my PhD studies, and I was essentially thrown in the deep end, had to sink or swim and learn how to do some very complex programming in R under the tutelage of my PhD supervisors. But what I had failed to actually get, and this is partly because data science was an evolving through the duration of my PhD candidature, was to actually get that real foundation in actually good data management. And what I was able to get essentially by going to this winter school was to basically go back to the beginning and be shown some good procedures of how to actually set up things at the base level. And it was one of those moments where you're sitting there and you're typing away in R and Unix, and you just go, oh, that's how I should have set up my data set right back at the beginning of my PhD. And while you can't go back and change some of the ways that things were set up in the past, it provided a really good foundation for how to handle data and look after data moving forward, and opening up opportunities of how to actually share that data in a safe way with other people interstate, and opening up a discussion around the use of platforms like GitHub to actually work collaboratively with people within Australia or even overseas, which is often not possible when you're just sitting on your computer in your office. Like Hugh already alluded to, I was the ECR with good computer skills, and I was getting a lot of questions sort of just put to me and feeling like I was often the only one who knew what these issues. And I guess one of the issues that I did have in coming back from the course is that I came back with these ideas and putting them to other people in the team that I was working with at the time, or even discussing it with the university, was difficult because there was not other people in my field, in the public health field, that were using platforms like GitHub or Unix for their data analysis. Although more and more people are using R because it's free software, and moving away from paying for software subscriptions for other statistical programming, it can be difficult to actually come back from the course and get your local IT department or your local colleagues to actually understand the benefits of working with these platforms. So lots of pluses for me were around networking, like Paula mentioned. I met people through the course that I still keep in contact with. We follow each other on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn together, and through, now working through other networks, we contact each other when we have ideas about something, or if we want to, talk about just what's happening in our life as an ECR, because sometimes you do feel quite isolated, and the academic journey can be, a lonely one sometimes when you're competing against other people within your field, or with working with more senior people who just want you to work on a particular path. And so sometimes it's good to have people who are outside of your direct working environment that you can just bounce ideas off. So that's been really valuable to me. And I would, you know, if anyone who's online at the moment has the opportunity to attend, not only do you get a great foundation in how to use this software and these platforms, but also, you know, meeting people and making those connections with your peers is part of the most valuable part of it. Yeah, that was my experience. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to field those.
Thank you very much, Jackie. It sounds a bit like one of the things that should be taught in the curriculum is how to convince your home institution of what you've learned.
Yeah, it can be tricky, and then when you come back and you can see that you know, you wanted to do things in a new way, and you might not have the computing power, or you might not have the network or the infrastructure to be able to do that, can be a bit frustrating. But you know, that's part of the point of doing these schools, is to slowly infiltrate, and you know, we come back and we teach other people, and it becomes that the trained teachers, you know, the trainer kind of, we teach and share our knowledge with other people, and hopefully the network expands and more people come on board over time.
And hopefully change the culture.
That's right.
Okay, thank you very much, Jackie. I haven't seen any further questions from the audience, and it's also just past the hour. So I think we'd probably wrap it up, if that's okay. And let me just see if I'm showing the correct screen. Probably not. Yes, I am. I would like to just say thank you very much for coming to the webinar, and thank you very, very much to all of our speakers, in particular you, who had to get up at some ungodly hour. Just a reminder, thank you very much, much appreciated. If you would like to learn more about RDA, the Research Data Alliance, and the Research Data Alliance Plenary, I've put the links onto the slides, which we will share afterwards. And other than this, thank you very much. And maybe we'll see some of you in Melbourne.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye. Bye-bye.